I am Hugo LJ asks, push-pull legs, personal opinion? Thanks, no problem. What I dislike about a push-pull legs training split is in order to get sufficient frequency per muscle group or movement a week, which in my books would be 2 times frequency, you'd have to train 6 days a week. And 6 days a week in my books is way more than the optimal dose of training that you can still recover and progress from consistently. I believe that training 3 to 5 days a week is optimal, with 4 sessions a week probably ideal for most people in most cases. Then a more of a full body approach or an upper leg split or a push-pull split that also incorporates push-pull leg exercises in it will allow you to get enough frequency and still train and recover, have enough rest day throughout the week. Diogo Burgos asks, I do not have the prerequisites for the A-level strength program. For anyone asking, that's the program, one of my programs. In the link in the description, the Bodyweight Tribe, you will find it at programs section. Great program for strength and skills. Can I follow it with regressions? I do not recommend. You will have other programs that are more suitable for people that don't yet have the prerequisites, so that you will build the raw strength needed to succeed in the A-level strength, which also includes very, very hard, demanding straight arm and bent arm skills. Diogo Burgos asks, elbow inflamed, how can I investigate why and how to treat it? So to get a good general sense, you can read my article, which is free, Tendon Healing in the Bodyweight Tribe, link is in the description under the article section. You will understand why it happened and what you need to do about it in order to come back to full performance levels. Eventually, all calisthenic athletes will have to deal with injuries and inflammations, as wrists, shoulder, and elbow joints are extremely involved in and stressed in the sport. What you will do when injury happens will dictate whether you will come back to full health and performance and progress over years and decades. In order to identify which exact muscle group is damaged so I can rehab it, I use isolation exercises to see which movement hurts. Elbow flexion, elbow extension, pronation, supination, etc. If you know the function, you know which muscle groups are responsible for it. If you know which muscle groups are responsible for it, you have a better understanding of which muscle group or which tendon in the muscle is damaged so you can rehab it. And in order to rehab it, it is basically progressively overloading starting from scratch, using extremely light loads such as 1 or 2 kilograms or very, very light band for extremely high reps, from a point that you are doing very light work up until the point where you are able to come back to full performance and load it using exercises such as dips, chin-ups, and more advanced exercises that you were doing prior to the injury. That is the rehab process. Yanis KLKT asks, workout preparation, fasting or carbs, example bananas, before workout. If you take a look at the research, it is quite clear that if you are training in order to improve performance, which is what you should be training for, hypertrophy, strength, or power improvements, then training fad, which is having some food in your system, in particular fast digesting carbs, improve performance in all of those measurements in comparison to training fasted. Now, if you're overweight, you don't need to consume before or during workout carbs. You have enough energy resources. But if you're already at the ideal body weight and body fat, then you can consider eating some fast digesting carbs just before workout or during workout, such as an electrolyte drink. I make my own electrolyte drink because that's the best drink that you can ever get. I mix water, I mix sodium, potassium, the juice of half a lemon, and I add raw honey for the fast digesting carb, which will help also absorb all of the aforementioned electrolytes. Matthias Ludwig asks, overhead press plateau on 2 upper body workouts a week. Should I add or decrease volume or do something else? Overhead press is one of the lifts that responds to getting absolutely jacked in the upper body. If you increase arm size, chest, deltoids, back, everything, it will directly result in overhead press improvements. You stall, don't add muscle size, you will feel that the overhead press is shit. So I would say that twice a week for direct overhead press work is enough, but you should consider adding a lot of hypertrophy exercises overall for your upper body after the specific overhead press practice. Get jacked and you will see how your overhead press improves. And Commander asks, how long should you cut? In my view, if you are training for bodyweight and calisthenics performance, but even strength training in general for health, function, longevity, and performance, then you should be maintaining a relatively lean body fat percentage year-round. I'm talking about 10 to 16% body fat. If you are relatively lean year-round, then you are never truly more than a few weeks away from your top shape. You shouldn't cut for that long. Some powerlifters, 30-year-old, move like grandpas. They might feel strong under a barbell, but anything moving their own body weight, like walking up and down a staircase or doing a set of push-ups, gets them exhausted. So if you want strength training for performance, for function, for longevity, for health, then always maintain a low body fat percentage as you improve strength. Levi Moses Vidal asks, can I eat as much as I want in quantity or frequency if it's all clean, whole sources of food? The short answer is yes. If you consume a diet from high protein, whole sources of food choices, basically non-processed single ingredient foods that you can pick from the ground or the tree, that you can fish or hunt, then you are extremely unlikely to overeat, as you will feel full and satiated when your body's needs, micro and macronutrients, are met. The problem comes when we process foods. Not just buy ultra-processed foods at a supermarket, but also prepare at home. Foods that were originally single ingredient non-processed, but we now cooked them into a cake, putting them in the oven, making them extremely palatable. So even if it was originally whole sources of food, it is extremely highly palatable now that you are likely to overeat it. So eventually, your prepared food should also be comprised of single ingredient foods majority of the time. Raf _ asks, what are your thoughts on using good quality whey protein as a main source if unable to get from animals? So in fact, if you are unable to get high quality animal sources of food, your next best option would be to supplement high quality whey protein. That's definitely what I'd do. Make sure it is high quality, as you want your gut to digest and absorb it with not too many issues. Consider whey or casein protein at night, which is a slower acting, longer muscle protein synthesis response for at night until your next meal. Inder _ JIT01. I'm training with resistance bands. How to know when to transition to the actual move? So when you use resistance bands in calisthenic exercises, you should view them as a pragmatic, methodical way of loading the same way that you will load dumbbells or barbells. You use a certain assistance from the resistance bands until you hit a certain Inder _ JIT01. I'm training with resistance bands. How to know when to transition to the actual move? So when you use resistance band in calisthenics exercises, you should view them as a pragmatic, methodical way of loading the similar way that you would view dumbbells or barbell training. you hit a volume benchmark, like 5 sets of 10 or 5 sets of 10 seconds if it's isometric hold, with a given level of assistance from the bands, and then you can lower the band assistance, use thinner bands. Rinse and repeat this process until you are left with little to no resistance from the bands, and you feel ready to do the full skill, full body weight. Go for it. Jose Manguiz asks, what do you think about drop sets in skills exercises like handstand push-up in a volume phase? After 2 or 3 hard sets of planche push-ups, should I do regressions? So drop sets and regressions used as high volume sets is not ideal for strength. Don't use the skills as a way to fatigue yourself and build muscle. You use the skills as a way of building specific strength and tendon strength to improve technique. When fatigue settles in too much, it will result in technique breakdown. So drop sets and high volume back off sets where you reach failure and beyond failure are bodybuilding methods. You can do bodybuilding for particular muscle group to improve the skills using isolation exercises with dumbbells, with machines, with body weight that are low stress and low complexity, high stimulus to fatigue ratio. Luke Scala asks how much or how little carbs needed to maintain consistent strength output. So it depends on the type of strength workouts that you perform. If you are doing calisthenics, then it is highly likely that you are falling somewhere in the moderate volume range. The more volume you will do, the more carbs you will need in your day in order to support performance. Bodybuilding workouts where you do high volume, you prioritize volume, you will probably need more carbs. If you are doing weightlifting style sessions where most, if not all of your sets are comprised of 1, 2, or 3 repetitions maximum, then you don't need a lot of carbs. So for calisthenics, a classic calisthenic workout, you are looking at something like 2 grams of carbs per day for kilogram of body weight to support calisthenics performance. If you are looking for bodyweight strength and muscle programs or online coaching under my guidance, check the link in the description, thebodyweighttribe.com. Support me and this channel. Thank you very much. Mr. Yami asks, is it necessary to eat post-workout or does it have a negligible value? So for the post-workout anabolic window, it is important to include protein if you are training in a fasted state, because if you don't want the body to break down its only amino acid reserves, which is the already existing muscle that you have and fought hard for, then you want to have some amino acid in your bloodstream. To have amino acids in your bloodstream, you can either, if you're training fasted, get some EAAs or BCAAs intra-workout drink and still be relatively in a fasted state, or simply eat a meal that includes protein from whole sources of food a few hours prior to the workout, and then the post-workout anabolic window would not be as necessary or acute. Scotch E asks, is there any room for creatine in calisthenics? Yes, there is. You should get sufficient amount of creatine from your diet, which will be from primarily meat, or consider supplementing with creatine monohydrate to get sufficient amount of creatine, about 5 grams per day, as research clearly states, and there's more than 1,000 studies that basically shows a consensus of hypertrophy, strength improvement, and endurance improvement. Therefore, it is relevant for all strength sports and calisthenics in particular. Get your creatine. Mr. Yami asks, how big of a gap would you recommend to separate the last meal of the day from night sleep? So it depends on meal size. A lot of the times, the biggest meal of the day is often the last meal of the day for most people because they have their working schedule throughout the day and then they eat a lot or binge at night. In those cases, I recommend having about 3 hours from last meal to bedtime so you can sleep and not have any gut discomfort or bad digestion problems. If it's a relatively small to medium-sized meal, it's probably fine to have 1 hour or 2 hours just before bedtime. As Lolva asks, alternating high carb and low carb days. I love carb cycling. I do carb cycling often, and it is an old school way of maintaining a reaching very low body fat percentage while still being able to replenish glycogen to support performance in the gym for strength training and bodybuilding. So it will help calisthenics as well, especially people who will find it very hard to maintain a relatively low body fat percentage. I recommend having about 2-to-1 low carb to high carb days ratio. Doing carb cycling, since most of the time your glycogen reserves in the muscle and in the liver will be relatively empty, it will be very hard, even on your high carb day, if you consume 300, 400, 500 grams of carbs, even on the high carb day, to exceed glycogen stores to the point where it is easier for the body to store the excess carbs as body fat, triglyceride, through the liver. BLK Savior asks, what are the recommended macros for gymnastics strength training? You will first prioritize protein, hit 1 gram of protein per goal body weight, and you will fill the rest with fats and carbs. Most of your fats will come directly from your protein source, so whole eggs, meat, fish, chicken, and the rest will be carbs. You don't need as many carbs for calisthenics as you do for, let's say, bodybuilding, because in comparison, the glycemic demand is lower. You don't need as many carbs to support your workouts, which would be mainly moderate volume, as calisthenics is a relative strength sport. You will primarily use the relative strength rep range of 1 to 5 or even 1 to 8 rep range. Bodybuilders will go way beyond to perform more sets, more reps, more volume overall, needing more carbs to support performance. B-Boy Pinky asks, 2200 calories per day, how much do you consume? I eat around 3000 calories per day. Mind you, I'm 180 pounds, lean, and train about 3 to 4 times a week. I don't count or measure my calories. I know that I get them from high protein, whole sources of food, so I am not worried about adding fat or overeating. That's the Q&A session for today. Great questions. If you have more questions, you can DM me on Instagram and follow me there, or leave them down in the comment section below and I will try to cover them. If you want online coaching under my guidance or training program, basically everything bodyweight strength and muscle, check the link in the description, thebodyweighttribe.com. Support me and this channel. Like and subscribe only if you love the video. See you next time.